Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Groot Nibelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, I'm going to go over the most puzzling players league wide as submitted by the Apples and Ginos Discord server. Let's get it. Welcome on in, everyone. Another Monday evening. The fantasy week is still young and full of promise, unless you are me and you somehow have Jeremy Swayman on a team, and then you're wondering what you did to deserve such a thing as the Columbus Blue Jackets just taking Swayman and the Bruins to task so far. 750 save percentage at the moment for Jeremy Swayman. That is suboptimal, I guess, is one way that you could put it. Yeah, zero G. The one time I auto drafted, I picked Jeremy Swayman. This is what happens to me. Serves me right, I guess. I can't complain too much when you're the one auto drafting. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to really fault the Bruins on this one, to be honest with you. If you take a look at the stats, 5v5 last 2 weeks, Blue Jackets across 6 games, they haven't been getting the W's, but they are third in the league in scoring chance for percentage at 5v5 over the last 2 weeks, fifth in Corsi for percentage. They're playing well. It just finally came true against Jeremy Swayman. Let's get some comments. Richard, originator of Zero G Draft Strategy and auto drafter Jeremy Swayman off the board. Yes, the two things I'm known the most for the fantasy hockey community for sure. Hey Solar, how's it going? Jordan's in here with the first question. Hey Nate, do you prefer Wyatt Johnston or Brian Rust rest of season standard Yahoo points league? How would you rank those two against Nichushkin? That is tough, especially since we haven't seen a lot of Nichushkin yet, obviously. Yeah, for those people listening to the audio after the fact, I'm recording this live here on Monday night. Those people will obviously have a bit of an advantage. They'll have had the advantage of having figured out what happened in this Avalanche Flyers game, which is just through the first period here. And nothing doing through the first period. No goals being scored. Nothing there. Nichushkin has a single shot on goal in 5:40 of ice time. Yeah, that's pretty much all that's happened so far. So it's a tough one. I think Johnston definitely has a higher ceiling than Brian Rust. Brian Rust, I think, has a very solidified role on the Penguins. I imagine he gets back on the Crosby line sooner rather than later. The Penguins are going to be trying a whole bunch of things. Yeah, but you also have to wonder how long Mike Sullivan has a job there and if the new coach will think the same of Brian Rust. I kind of feel like anybody's going to think the same of Brian Rust that comes in there just because they have nobody below on the depth chart at forward. That is a really tough question. Generally, when deciding between two players and I'm really genuinely torn like this, I tend to, if at all possible, try to take the player with the most upside. And in this case, obviously, I think that's Wyatt Johnston. Yeah, that's the way I lean. If you can afford to take the swing, that's how you. Nobody's here trying to get, like sixth place and like squeak into the playoffs in their leagues, right? We're all trying to win something here. You don't win by coming in sixth. So, yeah, I'm trying to swing for the fences more often than not. And in a situation like that, I think I would probably go Wyatt Johnston. It is honestly close to flipping a coin for me, though. Nichushkin, how does he figure into that? I think he's right there. You have to kind of put him right there just based on the body of work over the last number of years. But you also have to wonder if this is potentially a situation. We've seen it with some players coming back. Even look at Jason Robertson, who we're going to be talking about a little bit later here. he wasn't able to get in full training camp really does seem like it's affected him. And some players it seems to affect more than others, and you never really know until you find out if it's affecting them or not. And so there is still that concern with Nichushkin, and I think for that reason I would have him just a little bit below those two. But he definitely has really solid upside as well to be like a 70-plus point player. But that's also a line that I think both Johnston and Rust can hit when healthy and playing the kind of minutes that I expect them to play. So yeah, it's an interesting question, and three good players to compare because I do view them all pretty similarly at this point in time. Sam, trying to line up trading Niches for Matthews this week. How's everyone feel about that? I mean, if you can get it done, let's get it done. Toronto Dave is in here. Hashtag 0G. Appreciate you. PB Stars. Sup good. Let's get it. Let's do it. Solar asks, appreciate your thoughts on Bouchard and Sanderson. We could throw them in the sheet before we get to the content proper. Evan Bouchard, Jake Sanderson. So Bouchard, I think he got all these points, these 3 points in the last 5 games. I think he got them all in that one game, didn't he? Didn't he have a 3-point night there last week? Either way, you can see the underlying stats still look terrific with Bouchard. I know there's the highlights circulating on Twitter where he just like gives up defensively, he makes a bonehanded play. He hits Connor McDavid in the back with what was supposed to be a breakout pass, and it just sits in the slot. Yeah, he had a bad defensive game, some lapses against the Leafs, and they made him pay for it. That'll happen. We're not really interested in Evan Bouchard's defensive prowess. They also are not deep on defense, so it's not like they have a ton of other options to play a bunch of minutes and demote him. I don't really have any concerns with Evan Bouchard. I think he is probably a top 5 defenseman in most fantasy formats for the rest of the season. Jake Sanderson, on the other hand, he's got 2 assists his last 5 and has really cooled off after a really hot start, down to a 5-goal, 48-point pace on the season. Underlying stats are not really anything to write home about. The on-ice stats better than the individual stats, which has been Jake Sanderson's MO thus far in his career. 48% IPP, 9.1% on-ice shooting percentage. I think the IPP probably comes down a bit, but perhaps the on-ice shooting percentage might come up a little bit there. I think Ottawa in general has been perhaps a little bit unlucky in their goal scoring as of late. So yeah, I think there could be a chance for Sanderson to do better than this last stretch for sure. But I believe, and I can fact check myself on this, but I believe I only projected Sanderson for around 50 points, maybe 55. Let me check my own work here. Wow, Google Sheets is not going to enjoy that. Control F, Google Sheets, Control F. I had Jake Sanderson a little bit lower. That's right. I did anticipate a bit of a split, I think, on the power play here. I had him down at 43 points and about the same ice time. So that part is coming true. 176 shots. So yeah, I think the bigger part here is that he hadn't sustained this kind of IPP before, so I had him at a 36% even strength IPP. If he's going to be closer to this, even like a mid-40s number on the IPP, which is definitely a step that a young defenseman can take in the league, wouldn't be shocking, then he could sustain 50+. But yeah, it was never a player that I really saw extreme high-end offensive potential. I feel like Jake Sanderson might be one of those guys who is obviously really fast and really good at hockey, is an eye test beauty in some ways, where you watch him skate and you're like, wow, this guy's incredible. And then you realize, you got to do more than just skate fast to be able to pull off what we need for fantasy. New feeds. Hey, Nate, Showell, 8 points with bangers weighted lightly. Who would you drop to activate Tage whenever he's back, potentially Wednesday? Kyrou, Lehkonen, McMichael. For context, I have Nuke and Strome. Wow. That is a shallow league for sure. I mean, if Lehkonen got bumped off the top power play at any point, that would definitely be the route that I would go. Kyrou's playing well. McMichael's playing well. That's a tough sell in any direction. That is pretty difficult. I honestly might drop Lehkonen just because you have to figure at some point in the season he's not going to be top line, top power play. It seems really unlikely with the different forward combinations that they could run, that Lehkonen just sticks there constantly all season long. So yeah, maybe potentially I'd be dropping Lehkonen. Doesn't feel good. Anybody top line, top power play in Colorado there is definitely going to have some chances. But yeah, I think that might be the way I'd go. It doesn't feel good to say it, but I think that might be it. Let's see what else we got here. Samuel says, what do we expect from Hintz for the rest of the season? It's been very disappointing so far. I'm going to dig in a little bit on Johnston, Robertson, and Hintz all together here in a second. So stick around. PB Stars, do you feel Juvis Balinskis is settled in at Power Play 1? If so, is he a must roster? Love his underlying stats. We could throw those up on the screen if I can not pronounce, if I can, I'll never be able to pronounce, but if I can write out and spell his name correctly here. So yeah, second in shots per 60, 17 and a half average time on ice. So that's been coming up as of late. That's definitely a good sign for a player like Balinskis. I think I'm saying that right. Somewhere I saw that it was Balzinskis. Perhaps that's correct. I'm not sure. So yeah, he's had a couple of games where he got close to 20 minutes. Yeah, been up and down with the ice time, I guess is what I can say. He had the most ice time in a game they were getting blown out. Underlying stats, as you mentioned, look really good. So I think that, yeah, you can roster Balinskis. I'm not convinced that this isn't just going to eventually go the Adam Boqvist road anyway, and he's not going to get any run at even strength, or at least not enough to make him sustainable all the time. But while he's shooting the puck this much, while he's doing all the rest of it this much, yeah, I don't have a problem with running with him for a minute. I just think that you should be prepared to drop him basically at the drop of a hat. Speaking stats, what's your opinion on Miro Heiskanen on pace for 30 points? Miro Heiskanen, we can add all defensemen so far in the comments. 2 goals last 5, no assists, about 24 minutes, average time on ice. First in check-in pucks, first in individual shot attempts per 60, 28th in actual shots per 60, 8th individual scoring chances for per 60. On ice numbers are good as well, 11th and 13th. And the stats that we like there on the season, really good. Yeah. I don't really have a reason to change my projection for Heiskanen at this point. My projection at the start of the season was 11 goals and 65 points. So as a pace from this point onward, I don't think, like, the time on ice is within 15 seconds of where I had it projected. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Obviously, this 25% IPP is just absolutely cratering his stats at this point. And normally he's more like in the high 40s. So yeah, he's probably not going to score 65 points on the full season anymore with this slow start, but can he get back there as a pace from this point onward? I have to believe so. The underlying stats are all there. He just, for whatever reason, has not quite factored in on the goals thus far, but he's been on the ice for the goals, and clearly he's affecting play himself. He's taking the shots, doing good things, actually probably on a better shot pace. I'd have to check that one, but probably on a better shot pace actually than I projected him for. So that's actually good signs for Heiskanen. I'd be kind of in. If you can maybe buy Heiskanen as a buy low, might be into that at this point. The problem, and I mentioned this on a previous pod, is generally Heiskanen was going a lot higher than where I wanted to draft him based on my ranks and my projections. And so he really has to have fallen quite a bit for him to now have fallen back below a place where I'm now in on acquiring him, right? And I think he'll do better than what somebody else does. But if somebody else is panicking to the point where they think he's now like just a 50 to 55 point defenseman with not great peripherals, and you can pick him up for, I mean, whatever that's worth in your particular league, definitely, I think you might be willing to explore that. Armin says, much love to you. Curious to know which goalies you're rostering. That's a good question. I hardly know at any given moment which goalies I'm rostering. So in the Patron League right now, I've got Blackwood, Swayman, and Lindgren. Clearly, I should have started Lindgren over Swayman based on the early returns, but I did go with Swayman and Blackwood at this moment. In the Experts League, I currently have Decord, Lindgren, and Mrazek. In the Content Creators League, I currently have Montembeault and Mrazek. Yeah, hopefully Montembeault doesn't get absolutely caved in by Edmonton here. And then in Cacuffle, I have just Joy Decord, only one goalie there. 16-team league, and I've been, intentional about only rostering goalies that I think are actually going to provide me with something, and streaming the absolute heck out of my guys up front as a result. Hopefully Shabbat takes over power play 1. That could happen. Feels unlikely, but it could happen. We've seen crazier things. Is Zellweger still looking really good under the hood? Glad you asked. Love any chance to talk about Olen Zellweger. 2 goals, 4 points in his last 5. I believe I just got a notification, so unless the score app is lying to me, I believe he got on the board here. Yep, another goal for Olen Zellweger here tonight. Hopefully it was a bar down beauty. The last goal he had was not quite so impressive, but you can see the underlying stats here are terrific. 20 and a half average time on ice. I'd love to see that go up even a little bit, but this is totally serviceable for fantasy purposes. 15th shots per 60, second to only Heiskanen in the shot attempts per 60. 45th individual scoring chances for per 60, so that's a little bit down. He's not getting in close to get those shots, but even the on-ice numbers looking really good there in Anaheim. I mentioned this in, I think, the waiver wire show that I did with Blake, but actually Anaheim has been generating a fair bit at 5v5. They're 5th in Corsi for per 60 over the last 2 weeks, and 3rd in scoring chances for per 60. Now they're giving up an absolute crap load of chances as well. Their ratio is still not good, but they're at least playing exciting hockey, and that's leading to some fantasy relevance for a few of their players. Zellweger, one of the chief among them. Says, thanks, Nate. Picked up Zellweger. Great way to start the week with a goal. That's good. I'm glad that's working out for people. Good day, Nate. Thoughts on dropping Letang for Zellweger? 12-team Banger Cats League. Yeah, this is a tough one. Chris Letang has definitely not lived up to expectations to the start of the season here. Underlying stats are fine, but nothing to write home about for sure. 23 minutes average time on ice. The 9-goal, 27-point pace is really killing people, obviously, at this point. I think I would take Zellweger over Letang at the moment. Yeah, I feel reasonably confident in that take. Winnipeg Greg, he scored less than a minute into the game today, decided to watch and see how he played today, would be dropping Owen Power. Yeah, I would do that as well. I would rather have Zellweger than Power for sure. Samuel asks, Nelson versus Cousins rest of season. That's a tough one. I think Nelson is safer. I think Nelson. Yeah, I think Nelson. New Feed says, thanks for the Lekanen take, or welcome. Michael says, Nate, I can't hold on to Tippet anymore. He's killing me. What do we all do with this man? Yeah, we could throw him in just to highlight the difficulty that it has been with rostering Owen Tippett over the last little bit. Just 1 goal in his last 5. Still shooting the puck, still getting good minutes, over 18 and a half minutes. That's as good as it gets under Tortorella. The on-ice numbers not nearly as good, and on just a 41-point, 14-goal pace on the season now. Yeah, I mean, it depends, obviously, who you're going to drop for. I don't think the underlying stats suggest that he's playing terribly. It's just that pucks are not going in, and he's going to have plenty of these stretches playing in Philadelphia. I'm very happy to have avoided all Philadelphia players this year. Armin asks, ETA on Demko. I've not seen anything. He's on the ice. He's doing stuff, but he's been on the ice for, I think, like a month now, and still nothing. If anybody has heard anything different, put it in the chat and we can talk about it, but I have not seen anything on Demko. So, Shua, what are your thoughts on Robertson? Thinks he will bounce back to at least a point per game. I'm going to get to that just about as soon as I start getting back to the list here. Armin says, my goalies sound rough. Are you punting goalie cats every week or manage some wins sometimes? I haven't actually checked to see exactly how I'm doing. I usually, in the Patron League, which is my only cats league, most years, I can check to see how I'm actually doing in terms of generating stuff. I know it's never good early in the season, in terms of cats with 0G. I'm towards the bottom in wins, towards the middle bottom, I guess, in total saves. and save percentage, I'm dead last so far. So yeah, it's not been good, but yeah, it's Swayman that's killing me really in the Patron League. In the other leagues, depending on the points formats, sometimes you just go for extreme volume, sometimes you go for guys who can win you games. Yeah, it depends on the point systems in your specific leagues. Sometimes you can kind of tailor your goaltenders to point systems and come away with good points, even with the 0G system. Spoken enough on that. I don't need to get on my soapbox again, but yeah, I'm not worried about my goaltenders. Richard asks, Konechny sell high or hold? I mean, depends what you can get for him, I guess. I think Konechny is generally undervalued in most spots, so he might now just be getting a little bit more appropriately valued. I don't think anybody's expecting him to score at this 50-goal, 100-point pace for the rest of the season. I will say the average time on ice up at 21 minutes is looking really nice. I'm curious what I had as a projection. I had him at just under 20, so getting that extra, almost a minute and a half extra time on ice is really nice for Travis Konechny so far this year. I'm happy to see that. That'll definitely give him a little bit more floor. I had him projected for 35 goals, 77 points. I can definitely see him getting over a point per game with this kind of deployment. So yeah, I mean, you'd have to get a pretty good return for me to advocate selling on Konechny at this point. Back to Blister Boy. Thanks, Nate. Also got offered Sorokin today for Peterka. Goalies are Kemper and Georgiev. Thoughts? 12-team Banger Cats League. In general, I'm really not trying to acquire goalies as a rule of thumb. That is probably a little bit league dependent. Peterka is not as valuable in a Banger Cats. I can see it. I don't think it feels unlikely that you're going to regret it a ton. But if you are, at all struggling in goals or shots, then you might want to hang on to Peterka there because he's going to give you something there. Michael asks, is Petr Mrazek worth rostering in my points league? Wins are worth 3, goals against minus 2.25, and saves 0.5. He gets pelted every game, but would the goals against outweigh the saves, you think, in the long run? So generally speaking, you have a decently, that's a decently forgiving save setup. I think the typical is 1 goal should be minus the equivalent of 5 saves is the most typical point setup I see. And so you're a little bit below that. So it's a little bit more forgiving on the saves versus goals against than most leagues. So yeah, I think you could say that there is some worth to rostering Petr Mrazek in a league like that. For Demko, Darren Dreger reported today that his return is apparently imminent and just days away. Wow, that's something I missed. I'd be happy to see that for sure. What do we got? I just looked up Dreger. Are we not, is there actually no, where did this come from? They like what they're seeing in practice. Believes Demko's return will come sooner rather than later. Okay, so it's literally just his opinion. Yeah, I mean, it's an opinion from a writer. That doesn't honestly mean a whole lot to me because unless he's talked to someone in the organization that shares that opinion, that's just his opinion that, yeah, he could get that impression so many different ways that it almost feels like not worth talking about, to be honest. Not saying I'm glad you brought it up. It's worth talking about. But I don't know what to do with that information, to be honest with you. I guess, yeah, you can try trading away Kevin Lankinen, getting what you can for him now. That's probably a good thing to do in any sense. In any time you have a situation where the starter is likely to return at some point, it's probably worth looking at seeing what you can get for a guy like Lankinen. Yeah. Last one's, damn, I'm late, but let's get it, GOAT. Really happy you hopped on Blue Sky. Yeah, over on Blue Sky as well, trying to post whatever I post to Twitter over there. It's kind of annoying as a content creator to have to post to 2 different places, but I understand why people are over there. Russell Whitlock, someone dropped Marchessault in my 12-team head-to-head points league with hits and blocks. He finished ranked 56 last year on Vegas. Worth a grab, hoping Nashville figures things out. I haven't done a little check-in on Jonathan Marchessault in a little bit. Let's do that. He's got 3 points, 1 goal in his last 5, almost 17 minutes average time on ice, 31st shots per 60, 86 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, in that range with the on-ice numbers. 43-point pace is obviously not good, but definitely running low on the luck metrics, so we should expect that to bounce back a bit. Yeah, in a 12-team league, I think he should be picked up. I definitely think that Vegas was a better situation for him than Nashville. But definitely, I also at the same time can believe that he's going to do a lot better than 43 point, 13 goal pace. So yeah, I think he's worth rostering for sure in a 12-team head-to-head points league. Michael, Zach Werenski has been pretty solid this year so far. What are your thoughts on him so far? Yeah, if you've followed Apples and Ginos for any length of time, you've heard me wax poetic about Zach Werenski many, many times. I had him projected for 16 goals, 62 points, 250 shots, 150 blocks. Yeah, I'm a big, big fan of Zach Werenski. I have him on 2 of my 4 teams this year, and I've been enjoying the results so far. I wonder what the pace is at this point. He got another assist in this game here tonight. I think that's the only one so far. Let me see this here. Also, what if you bet that Anaheim would score the first 2 goals against Dallas, the way that Dallas has been playing lately, you probably could have made a lot of money. Yeah, so it's just the 1 assist. Is that right? Yeah, but still good stuff. Zach Werenski has 4 points his last 5. You see the underlying numbers are insane at 26 plus minutes a night. On pace for 19 goals, 63 points. That's close to what I had him at, right? And he's getting a little bit more ice time even than I thought. On the season, the numbers are even better. I mean, what's not to love with Zach Werenski? I think this is a guy who's probably a top 5 offensively talented defenseman in the league. And he's in Columbus, so he doesn't get a lot of hype or a lot of the praise that he deserves. If he's playing on any number of other teams, put him on the Toronto power play and see what that would look like. This would be a guy that could threaten a point per game. All right, we made it through all the comments, only 27 minutes in, and now we're going to have to speed run some players, but we've got some players that I've grouped together a little bit here, so we'll be able to get through this in short order for sure. Top of the list was actually Macklin Celebrini, and he's got 2 goals in his last 5, average time on ice 20 minutes, so that part is nice. I did want to do a little check on Celebrini because I did see that they moved some lines around and see recording this before the game tonight, which always feels a little risky. But yeah, he's been pretty consistently up in that range in these games. The lowest in the last 5 games is 1840. The highest is 2250. So yeah, he's been getting plenty of minutes. We like to see that for Celebrini. I'm not loving the line juggling that they did to Foley down on like the 3rd line, and I think Celebrini was with Will Smith and somebody else I wasn't excited about. Will Smith and, Barclay Goodrow. That's not ideal for Macklin Celebrini, but, over the course of the season, this is going to be a guy who's going to get a lot of opportunity and looks the part, looks absolutely ready to go. They have mentioned stuff about a development plan or potentially resting him in some games the way that they have done with Will Smith, but it's not actually come to fruition in any game so far. I mean, this week they have a 4-game week. They have a back-to-back later on in the week on Wednesday, Thursday, so maybe he gets rested for one of those 2 games. That'll be something to monitor moving forward, but I'm pretty in on Celebrini. You see the shots per 60 at 45th. That's good. Individual scoring chances 4 per 60 is a little less, but at 162nd, and the on-ice numbers are never going to look amazing there in San Jose. But a guy who's generating shots the way that he can, also did that all the way throughout his collegiate career. I think that continues. On pace for 35 goals, 47 points. I think probably we get a few more assists. Maybe, honestly, I think he can get to 30, 35 goals as a pace on the season. Missed some games, so it might be tough for him to actually crack that now, but I think I had him projected for about 30 goals and 60 points. can look that one up as well. 32 goals, 65 points is what I had Celebrini for at the beginning of the season. And honestly, I don't think he's going to be that far off that as a pace anyway when all is said and done. So I'm still pretty into Celebrini. Wyatt Johnston, Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, the big Dallas trio that everybody's been worried about. Is that another Makar goal? Wow, I just saw that come across. It looks sometimes the score, like you get a quick read and it's not actually true. Yeah, 2 Makar goals. Wow. Shout out to Cale Makar. I will never understand people who are not interested in taking Cale Makar in the first round. The laps around every other defenseman that this guy does with his offensive potential is just insane. One of my favorite players to watch too. Sorry, digression there. Back to the Dallas trio: Johnston, Robertson, Hintz. Johnston's got 1 goal, no assists in his last 5. Robertson's just got 1 assist in his last 5. Hintz has a couple goals, no assists. Hintz getting 15 minutes and about 30 seconds average time on ice in the last 5 games is pretty concerning for me. That's not what you want to see. Definitely not what you want to see there. That being said, like, he's still on that line with Robertson. His underlying numbers don't look too bad. 62nd shots per 60, 58th individual scoring chances for per 60, 41st in on-ice scoring chances for per 60. That part doesn't look too bad to me. I'm not concerned about how well Hintz is playing. I'm only really concerned about the ice time that he may or may not get. And with the Marchment, Duchesne, Sagan line playing so well, obviously Hintz has been one of the players that's been deprioritized in favor of that line. May continue for a while. Overall, I think he probably gets back up into a more comfortable, close to at least 17-minute a night range. What did I have him for? 17 minutes, 45 seconds was my projection at the beginning of the season. That included 1:25 shorthanded. I don't think he's likely to get quite that far, but if he can get back towards a 17-minute a night range, he could still put up 65 to 70 points as a pace. Again, it's very early in the season. It's hard to remember when you're in the midst of it, but we are still very early in the season. More likely than not that a lot of this is going to be a distant memory at some time in the not so distant future. More concerning than the ice time for Jason Robertson is the fact that the underlying numbers don't look very good. 156 shots per 60, 128th individual scoring chances for per 60. On ice numbers, not great either in that kind of range. And that is concerning for Jason Robertson, mostly because you have to wonder if he kind of rushed back a little bit from that preseason injury that he had. And if he's maybe still feeling some sort of effects, that's the most concerning possible outcome or possible reason to explain the slow start for Jason Robertson here. And then, maybe a little bit less ice time than you're expecting, right? On the season, 18 minutes on the season, closer to 17 minutes the last 5 games. Item projected for 18 and a half, and that got him to 90 points in my projections. Now you're kind of just left hoping he can be a point per game guy. I think he can be that with somewhere around 17 and a half to 18 minutes, but we're definitely going to have to see something correct in the underlying numbers, and so far I've not seen it. If I see the underlying numbers correct, hopefully before the points can start coming, and then we can say, Jason Robertson is back, and then we can all jump on the bandwagon. We can send trade offers, and we can get some Robertson on our teams. But right now, I don't feel strongly that you need to go out and acquire Jason Robertson. Without the underlying numbers starting to bounce back in a meaningful way, I'm not convinced that this is the time quite yet to jump on Jason Robertson. It could be that the goals start to come before the underlying stats start to come, and then you'll have missed out. So you can take that with a grain of salt, but it's definitely tricky times there. Wyatt Johnston is the guy that I actually feel the most confident in. He's actually maintained really good under the hood numbers pretty much the entire season, but has been catastrophically unlucky so far on the season. 44% IPP, 4.9% shooting percentage, 9.7% on ice shooting percentage. Yeah, this is a guy who's going to bounce back. The question is, what can he bounce back to? Similar to Robertson and Hintz, his minutes have gone down over the last little bit. I think that likely they come back in a decent way. He was, I think he still is, leading all forwards in average time on ice, partially due to the fact that he plays on penalty kill as well there. But of all the players in Dallas that are kind of slow right now. Wyatt Johnston is the one I'm the least concerned about, and I do think he's a pretty good buy low at the moment. Do I think that he's going to hit my 76-point projection for him? Probably not. Do I think that he can still get 65 to 70? Absolutely. I would comfortably project him at that pace for the rest of the season right now. Philip Forsberg was requested. It's definitely not been a plus season for Philip Forsberg so far. I had him projected to put up a 90-point season with 43 goals, 320 shots, 134 hits, do all those things we like. And that hasn't quite come true, but he does have 4 points in his last 5, so it's not terrible. 124th in shots per 60, but 28th in shot attempts per 60, and good numbers in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. The on-ice numbers, not as good, so he is having to drag his line maybe a little bit more than usual. On the season, the 56% IPP is crazy low for him. The shooting percentage should probably jump up a little bit as well. And so I do think that there are better times ahead. So 35 goal, 65-point pace for Forsberg is definitely going to regress positively. Would it get back all the way to where I had the projection for him? I think it can. I do think it can. Yeah, Nashville made a lot of changes. Things haven't quite worked out the way that they wanted to. In this last game on Sunday, Stamkos got on the board, some power play stuff working. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come, and they can kind of right the ship a little bit there, and Forsberg can be a big part of that. And to me, this is showing what the underlying stats are showing is that it's not Forsberg's fault, basically. And so I do feel pretty confident that he is going to rebound. Maybe a question of how high the rebound goes, but I do feel he can rebound. Connor Bedard here, 1 assist his last 5. I talked about this player in the flagship show yesterday, so if you haven't checked that one out, you can go back and check that out for more of my takes. Won't rehash too much here, but did want to note, since he was heavily requested, the underlying numbers don't look good with Connor Bedard, and the minutes have gone down. Luke Richardson is feeling a little bit embattled there in Chicago at the moment. Hard to say if there's something else going on here with Bedard. The underlying numbers, the on-ice numbers are so bad that you have to wonder if this is more than just things aren't working in Chicago, and if there's something going on with him, some sort of ailment that he's trying to play through. That's pure speculation. I don't have any inside information on that, but it feels like one of the only explanations for his numbers being this bad under the hood for any stretch of time. We know the talent of the player. I wouldn't be opposed to exploring a buy low on the player, because I do think better days should be ahead for him, but definitely a tough spot, and there may be more darkness before the light comes, as it were. From Connor Bedard to Connor Ingram, he is getting the start here tonight, but Vejmelka did get back-to-back starts, so it's definitely a spot. Oh, they took the Makar goal off the board? Must have been overturned. Too bad. Just click back to see. Okay, that game hasn't started yet. But yeah, Ingram getting the start here has definitely not had a good start to the season. I've said this before, but as soon as I see the other goalie in a tandem get 2 straight starts, I'm willing to drop the goalie that I have. So if you have Connor Ingram and something goes wrong here tonight, like it's not a great game for him against Washington, definitely, I think you can drop him. Either way, I think Vejmelka has played himself into at least a split for the time being. And then we'll see from there. If Ingram has a really rough game here, I could definitely see Vejmelka getting multiple games the rest of the way. Probably gets Thursday regardless. It's a Saturday-Sunday back-to-back, so you could hold Ingram and hope that he gets the Penguins and not the Leafs, maybe. But yeah, tough time to be rostering Connor Ingram for sure, and I would co-sign a drop after the game here tonight if you need to. All right, let's get back to some comments. Let's see what we got here. Got to find where we left off. E says, can we do Ryan O'Reilly in a 12-team points league that counts face-offs? He has to be a hold. Still no. Had close to 70 points last year. Top line, top power play. Yeah, I mentioned Ryan O'Reilly in the flagship show yesterday as well. Went through a lot of stuff with him. In a league that counts face-offs, probably does have to be a hold. Just being top line, top power play. I have him in Cupful, which is a 16-team league, as I mentioned, and I'm holding him there even through a tough week here. I think in most spots you can probably drop O'Reilly until some things start to go a little bit better and he can be a part of that. He's just not a player that does it all himself. And so that's what concerns me the most with O'Reilly, is that he really does rely on everybody else clicking at a high rate for his own, that 70-point upside that you're talking about. That has to come through other players, not just through him. Michael says, with Matthews' injury, him missing, I think, 6 games now, what's your projection of how many goals, points you think he'll finish the year with? Should be back this week, hopefully. Yeah, it's hard to say because it does seem like it's some sort of nagging thing that he's trying to get totally clear before he comes back, and it hasn't totally resolved. That's always concerning. You wonder if that lingers into the season. If there's no ill effects, then I would just honestly go straight back to what my projection was for him. His underlying stats look terrific before he went off with this injury, and as soon as he's back, I'd expect him to be right back to that, unless there's something that lingers. But it really does sound like they're taking time with him. They've been able to win games without him, and so they've been able to take some time. They have a 2-game week this week, and so they're not feeling rushed to get him back in the lineup, which I think is the correct move in terms of the team. But yeah, I don't have a reason to move off of my preseason projection for him at this point, unless we see that, when he comes back, it doesn't quite come back for him the same way, that there does still appear to be something hampering him. PB Stars, not sure if Sarangovic is already on the list. Good metrics, but only 1 point to show for it. He is on the list. We are getting there. CJ, you think Stolarz gets both starts this week? I'd be a little bit surprised by that, to be honest. But it's not impossible by any stretch. Vegas on Wednesday and then Utah on Sunday. Not impossible, but would not be my first guess. Meyer for Heinz, want to try to get rid of #finding Timo. No, I'd take Meyer there 10 times out of 10. Better rest of season goalie, Stolarz, Kemper, or Thompson? Interesting. Thompson has obviously played really well so far, so is Stolarz. I think Stolarz' upside is probably a little bit higher in Toronto. I think I lean that direction. Kalixi, I believe is how you pronounce that. Is it safe to move off Giroux in a 12-team points league? Been eyeing up Marchenko or Norris as replacements. We will talk about Giroux in a moment here as well. CG says, hope Blake's calendar photo shoot went as planned. Spicy. From all accounts, it was a roaring success. So, yes. Michael asks, is Kemper on the list today? Darcy Kemper is on the list today, so we will get there as well. Back to the list we go. Joel Eriksson Ek, 4 games played on the sheet here and 1 assist in those 4 games. The average time on ice is a little bit messed up with the injury. 10th individual scoring chances, 4/60, so that's still happening for him. Looks like he's practicing and should be good to go, I believe, for Tuesday's game against the Blues here this week. That would be my best guess, at least at this point, given the fact that he practiced today. Practice on the top line between Kaprizov and Boldy. Underlying numbers looking good. I'm excited about what this could be for the short term, at least. It's not the shortest of terms. Zuccarello looks like he'll be out for 3 to 4 weeks, according to the release there. So yeah, if Ek can hold down the spot between Kaprizov and Boldy, that's a line that they ran with for a good chunk of the latter portion of last year. So if that happens and he's still on top power play, this could be one of the best stretches of Joel Eriksson Ek's season. So I'm pretty excited about Eriksson Ek for the next little bit. Matthew Tkachuk, popular player on Puzzling Players this year. 1 goal, 3 points his last 5, under 17 minutes average time on ice here. Underlying stats still look really good. 121st in shots per 60, but 23rd individual scoring chances, 4/60. 46th Corsi, 4/60. 10th in on-ice scoring chances, 4/60. Now on just a 25-goal, 69-point pace, which is not so nice when you stop to think about it. I think that 2 things can be true, right? The IPP should go up here. He should be even more efficient than he has been on limited minutes. He should be probably around a point per game player at this level of usage. But the fact that this level of usage is, you look at the full season stats, it's not much different, right? Full season versus the last 5 games here, kind of in and around the 17-minute mark. It seems like Paul Maurice really does just want to limit ice time and kind of keep all his stars healthy throughout the season. I understand why it's not a great thing for fantasy, but if you are the Florida Panthers and you are sitting atop the Atlantic Division, you really don't have a reason to change your ways at this point. Maybe there's more situations coming throughout the year where, they're chasing games a bit more and they have to play Tkachuk a bit more. Definitely could see that coming. Yeah, I don't want to discount that, but I think that Tkachuk is still a terrific player. It's really just tough to envision a true high-end outcome for him where he gets like 19 plus minutes at some point and he's really popping off with that kind of deployment. So yeah, I think he's more of like a point per game player. I think I had him projected for 95, 96 points at the beginning of the season. Matthew Tkachuk, 96 points, yeah. At the beginning of the season with this reduced deployment, yeah, I'd knock him down to more of like the 80 to 85 point range. And I'd just be tempering expectations at this point. I think you have to with the early deployment. That being said, there's still upside there. It could still happen that they change tack and they do have to try to compete a bit more and come from behind in more games, and Tkachuk gets more ice time as a result. So a bit of patience there, but also I don't think he's like a must buy low either, just based on the lower average time on ice. Timo Meier, player that I mentioned in the flagship show yesterday, so you should probably go check that out. Terrific underlying numbers, getting solid minutes, nothing too scary there, but the points are not coming. Just 1 goal, no assists in his last 5. Worth noting that he's played a ton of games. New Jersey's played, I think he's played in every one, 21 games. I believe that's their full complement of games. Yeah, 21 games so far. A lot of other teams are, still in the 17, 18 range. So, yeah, you could get games played by moving off of Timo Meier, but this is not the time to do it, in my opinion. Whether or not he gets top power play, he will be better than a 27 goal, 55 point pace. The on ice shooting percentage alone should come up, but the IPP should come up as well. The underlying stats look really good. He's shooting a ton. He does that. I'm still in on Timo Meier, the player. Brian Rust, 2 goals, 3 points, his last 5, 18 minutes, average time on ice, 120th shots per 60, 145th individual scoring chances for per 60, in the mid to high 100s in the on ice numbers. I think Rust is fine. 31 goal, 44 point pace on the season. The points will come up. The goals should probably stay around that as a pace, I think. Yeah, he's playing on the Malkin line right now, which you would obviously prefer him to be playing with Crosby, all things considered, but he is on the top power play. He is at a base going to get 18 minutes a night, more likely going to get 19 plus when he counted up at the end of the season. And so I'm still in on Brian Rust. This is a player, when healthy, that's just going to be an underrated source of fantasy points for your squad. Igor Sharangovich, as requested, 1 goal, no assists rather in his last 5, 18.5 minutes average time on ice, 52nd in shots per 60, 161st individual scoring chances for per 60. On ice numbers not as good, 183rd Corsi for per 60 and 203rd on ice scoring chances for per 60. They're trying some weird stuff with the lines. Sharangovich on a 15 point pace on the season. It's good to see the shots coming up. He is on the power play doing those things. 3.6% on ice shooting percentage. Obviously, that's going to regress positively and in a pretty big way. I think that Sharangovich can be like a 30 goal, 60 point guy in the best case, but it's not a good spot right now. I feel solid that Sharangovich will be better. I don't feel as solid that he's going to be better immediately based on these stats and based on how Calgary's playing at the moment. So yeah, that's kind of my take on Sharangovich. I like the player and I think he will be better and he can score at a good pace for an extended period of time. I'm just not sure that that's going to suddenly flip the switch like tomorrow. Frank Vetrano here, 1 goal, 3 points in his last 5 before this tilt that they're in the midst of against Dallas right now. They're in the first intermission, and he does not have a point so far. Almost 19 minutes, 6 shots per 60, 20th individual scoring chances for per 60, 18th Corsi for per 60, 47th on ice scoring chances for per 60. Everything looking really good for Vetrano under the hood at the moment. Getting more deployment early in the season. He wasn't getting those minutes. Now he is. It does seem like Cronin is relying on Vetrano and Terry especially for a lot more ice time. I really like that, obviously, for fantasy purposes. Yeah, I don't think Vetrano is going back to the season he had last year, but I think better things are on the way for Frank Vetrano at this point. And we should be reasonably excited about what that might look like. This is a guy who hits a lot too. He does that. So he's bringing you value in a lot of different ways. I had him projected for a 29 goal, 52 point season, 18, 15 average time on ice. And yeah, I think he can get there. I think this is, yeah, I wouldn't change that projection at the moment. So if a 29 goal, 52 points, 262 shot, 131 hit player is valuable in your league, then Frank Vetrano is, in my opinion. Back to the comments. What do we do with R and H? Yes, this is a tough one. Nugent Hopkins, just kind of the classic case of a guy who can facilitate, but is ultimately dependent on the players around him to get his points. 3 assists, no goals in his last 5, 19.5 minutes average time on ice, still getting that deployment. Actually 66 in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60 over this span, which is pretty good. 9th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60, so that's really good. So yeah, the underlying metrics have actually come up. He's on pace for 4 goals and 36 points on the season, which is absolutely putrid. But as you might expect, the luck metrics have not been going his way, and I do expect that to bounce back. Yeah, actually, I'm positively encouraged by the underlying numbers here for Nugent Hopkins. He's never going to be a big shooter, but it looks like when he is electing to take a shot, that he's doing so in pretty dangerous areas. So, yeah, I'm actually, these numbers are painting me a pretty rosy picture of Nugent Hopkins. Might be a good time to buy low. Frank says, could use an upgrade at left wing, looking to sell high on a red hot Nichushkin for Philip Forsberg in a package deal. Any other left wing I should target? Ooh, off the top of my head, I don't know if I've got one for you. Let me think on that a little bit. Left wing only? Could use an upgrade at left wing, eh? That might be, I mean, we should be able to figure something out here. Upgrade on Natchez at left wing. Sort this by roster percentage. You're obviously not going to pay up for Kaprizov. Jack Hughes has been hot. You don't need to go out and pay up for that. Wonder who you could get that I'd be willing to pay up for. That is definitely an upgrade on Natchez. Maybe a Jesper Bratt. Bratt has been terrific this season. I could see that. Trying to think who else that you could really go for. I don't think you're reaching up for like a Panarin or anything like that. Not really sold on going after Ovechkin. Maybe a Gensel. I don't feel terrific about that. Yeah, those would be, I guess, the top guys. Jesper Bratt has left wing eligibility on Yahoo. Yeah, you could package up and go higher to try to get, the Panarins, I guess. Somebody all the way up there in the absolute elite echelon. The Panarins, the Draisaitl's even, if you really want to package up a few players and try to get somebody up there, definitely be on board for that. So, yeah, aim high and come down if you have to, I guess. CG trade target for getting rid of Carlson. Heiskanen. Talked about him earlier. That would be the first one that comes to mind. Michael, can you quickly look at Carter Verhaeghe? Curious your thoughts on this guy. Verhaeghe's a guy that I've talked about a few times so far, and always have good things to say about Verhaeghe, mostly because he always has crazy underlying numbers like this. Also getting a little bit less time on ice as of late, but with the underlying numbers like this, you're going to be happy. And on the season, the average time on ice has actually been higher. Yeah, I'm looking to acquire Verhaeghe. Have been pretty much all season. He's got 4 points his last 5. I don't think he's going to be super cheap, but maybe you can find somebody who's still a little bit lower on Verhaeghe than they should be, and you can make that acquisition. Definitely into that. Sorry, turning in late. Newborn took a bit to go down. Not really sure what to do with Horvat and Banger Cats with Faceoffs League. Is he droppable? Bo Horvat. I feel like we are just talking about how good he was. Yeah, he's got 5 points his last 5. Are they not coming in the last few games here? I'm trying to think. Last time I saw Horvat. Okay, so he had the 3-point game, then he had 2 pointless games, he had a 2-assist game, then he had another pointless game. I think you can roster Horvat. It's definitely not great for him that Barzal is out, and that will affect his overall scoring. But in a faceoffs league, yeah, I don't think you want to be dropping Bo Horvat in a faceoffs league personally. I know the drill with getting the newborn down, so no worries about that. All right, back to the list. We've got 7 more players on it. Noah Dobson, I talked to this guy up as probably the biggest buy low that I had. His shots per 60 and everything that was looking so good has come down a little bit since then, but he has also put up a couple points. Overall, I still think that I want to be in on acquiring Dobson. Again, a little bit of the Heiskanen problem where Dobson was going higher, like he was going in the 3rd round in a lot of leagues where I was more comfortable with him in like the mid to late 4th, more in the Werenski tier for me. And so I didn't end up with Dobson anywhere. If somebody is now valuing him below that or significantly below that, if they're really fed up with them, if they're thinking, man, I have these Islanders and the Islanders suck, definitely still think I'd be interested in acquiring Dobson. Darcy Kemper, this is a case where the guy's injured for the moment. Seems like they're thinking it's only going to be about a week at the moment, is what I've heard. But definitely, I mean, David Riddick has been better. What's Kemper? Kemper has an 899 save percentage, and David Riddick has 892. Must have been in the last game. Am I missing something? Oh no, it was he had that one really bad start. Oh yeah, he had 2 really bad starts. He had a Toronto really bad start, and he had a Vegas really bad start. And everything else has been actually pretty good for Riddick. Yeah, I think that we might see a little bit more 50-50 or at least, 55-45 than we were hoping for between Kemper and Riddick. We'll see how this week goes, honestly. So this week you don't have to make any decisions with Kemper because he's on IR. I mean, if you don't have the IR spot for him, I mean, he's I guess like a lower tier starting goalie in the league. And so I'm willing to drop him and, pick up Petr Mrazek or somebody else if I have to fill that spot later. It's definitely not a player that I feel like I have to hold. But if you can just plug him in IR and roster David Riddick for this week and figure out if Riddick is going to, lay a claim to more of the net share, then you can do that. I don't think you have to be, overthinking things with a player like Darcy Kemper. I don't think this is a guy who's going to like win you your league this year. Mika Zibanejad, 1 goal, 2 points in his last 5, just over 17.5 minutes average time on ice. They were playing with the lines in New York a little bit, and so I wanted to get the latest here. Zibanejad was back with Riley Smith and Chris Kreider in the last game. Did they practice with new lines? Nothing. Yeah, I think that Zibanejad has like okay underlying numbers in the last 5 games. But it's not a player I'm excited about. It's not a player that, shows up well in a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in for fantasy. I had him projected for 28 goals, 81 points, but 32 points of that on the power play. And yeah, it really does feel like a player that's pretty contingent on the power play working and being a big part of that power play. And so if that's not working, that's a big problem for me with Mika Zibanejad. I have concerns about Zibanejad and how this season has gone so far for him. 15 goals, 62-point pace. It's not a player that I was targeting, not a player that I drafted anywhere. I'm not excited about Zibanejad. I don't know if you can really trade him for value at this point, but I would probably be adjusting that projection downward as a point pace for the rest of the season. Zach Hyman has 4 points, 1 goal in his last 5 games here. 19 minutes, 45 seconds, average time on ice. Individual numbers have not been good here, but the on-ice numbers have been terrific. That's a little bit concerning for Hyman. Usually he has really good shots per 60, individual scoring chances for per 60. That's usually a pretty big feature of his game, actually. Halfway through this Edmonton-Montreal game, it's still 0-0, and I'm not sure if Hyman has put anything towards the net so far. He does have 3 shots in this game, so maybe it's coming back a little bit here. Overall, I'm not like concerned about Hyman having a terrible season. Do think he's still a buy low if people are not excited about what he's doing. But yeah, it's not great that these underlying numbers haven't been so good in the last 5 games. I don't want to read too much into it. I think that Hyman is fine. I think, yeah, what did I have him projected for at the beginning of the season here? I can check this out. Zach Hyman I had for 84 points, 46 goals. It'll be tough for him to hit those goals at the end of the season. But as a point pace rest of season, the average time on ice, I'm pretty much bang on with in terms of the projection. So yeah, I think he can still touch a point per game, but maybe he doesn't quite get the goals as a pace rest of season. So yeah, maybe like a 40 goal, 75 point pace as an adjustment. Doesn't feel that crazy. It doesn't feel like a huge change to what you're expecting out of Hyman this year. Trevor Zegras, 1 goal in 5 games. I don't know if you saw the celebration. He scores the goal and he looks absolutely miserable coming off the ice. I don't know what Greg Cronin did to this guy. Used to be one of the most fun-loving guys. Always fun to watch. It seems like, I don't know, something has changed there. I don't want to speculate too much, but it feels like Zegras is playing the game, quote unquote, the right way, and it's absolutely sapped his game of everything that's of interest to us for fantasy. The underlying numbers don't look that great here. He has been playing with, I think, Vetrano and Terry on a top line, and now it's been switched up. He's with Carlson and Killorn in this game here today. It's not nearly as good for my purposes. I want him to be with Vetrano and Terry, the best 2 offensive players on the team. Aside from maybe Cutter Gauthier, who is relegated to the 4th line because Greg Cronin hellscape, that's why. Yeah, Zegras is not somebody I can get excited about. It would have to be the deepest of leagues. As a streamer for this week, if you picked him up for this Monday, Tuesday, or the Monday, Tuesday, Friday off nights that Anaheim has, in a deeper league, I'm okay with it. But he was not the first, second, or third guy that I'd be looking at off of Anaheim as a streamer this week. Claude Giroux, just 1 assist in his last 5 here, but getting 20.5 minutes average time on ice. 155th shots per 60, but 322nd individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. On ice numbers are better. 80th Corsi, 4 per 60. 59th scoring chances, 4 per 60. Yeah, you have to wonder if Giroux might be aging out a little bit here. Last practice here, they had him on a line with Stützle and Batherson. That's obviously a pretty good spot. And the problem is he's never going to be on power play 1. He's on a 24 goal, 58 point pace, playing lots of minutes, being pretty effective. Yeah, I think he's going to be in this range. I think I probably had him projected somewhere in this range. Yeah, 22 goal, 61.5 point pace is what I had him projected for. So he's right around that in terms of the season pace. It's just that he was super hot earlier and he's cold now. I don't have much to say about Drew. I think he's a 60-point player. Will Cooley has 2 goals and 4 points in his last 5. 17 minutes, 45 seconds average time on ice in that span. 96 shots per 60, 74th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. On ice numbers are terrible, but that's probably to be expected because, yeah, the line mates that he'd been getting for much this season were not so great. They were trying some weird stuff with power plays. He's gotten on the 2nd power play now. Laviolette had this quote that he had a really strong start to his year. Do see him as somebody who's probably eventually going to be a regular on a power play unit. For whatever that's worth, you can take that. But yeah, he's on a 3rd line now with Brodzinski and Kakko. I think he spends most of his time there. Definitely a guy that you want to look at as a hit stream. This guy hits everybody that moves. But definitely also overperforming in terms of IPP shooting percentage on ice shooting percentage. The 62.26 goal pace is not real. But yeah, I mean, he could have a really nice season and have like a 20 goal, 40 point season. That might be the high end that you can expect from Will Cooley in terms of point scoring. All right, we made it to the end of the list. We have some more comments, though, so we'll get through the comments, and then we will get out of here. Over an hour already. CG, better final D-man and 12-team points league. OEL, Lindholm, Zellweger, Falk, or Orlov. Probably going... Ooh, I was going to say Falk. Obviously he's cold, but the underlying numbers are pretty good with him. Honestly, I might go Zellweger as the top out of all those guys. I think Zellweger actually. Yeah, give me Zellweger, then Falk, and then light years above the other guys for me. SK93, hey Nate, would you trade Robertson for Kreider in a bangers league? Interesting question. Chris Kreider, also a player that I didn't have a lot of. Underlying numbers looking pretty good here, but not actually scoring as of late. I don't love it. Kreider definitely not a guy that I see as having more upside than Robertson. But if you're just kind of trying to lock in, if you're trying to lock in something for your roster, then I can see it. What does he have? He's got 22 hits on the season, so he's getting you more than a hit per game. That part's nice. The minutes being down, the last little bit especially, is kind of concerning for me. I don't love it. I don't know if I can co-sign that one. I think that's possible that he's better. He's obviously going to give you more hits, but yeah, it feels a little risky, I guess is what I'll say. Jordan says another Makar goal. He had one that got taken off the board and then he scored again. Is that what's happening here? Good grief, Kel Makar. Have yourself a day. CG, Binnington or Riddick for this week? Interesting question. Probably Binnington just because you're assured the volume, right? Because, I guess it's really probable that Riddick does get both the Buffalo and the Seattle games. Binnington could get all 3 games this week, though. Minnesota, San Jose, and New York Islanders. I think I might roll with Binnington because you feel assured of 2 games and you might get 3. Are you holding Slavkovsky in a keeper league? Depends how many keepers. It depends how many keepers, depends how deep the league is. But yeah. Jordan, thoughts on trading away Hischier and Horvat for Braden Point? I have Hughes, Dougie, so I want to get out of the New Jersey 3-stack and move Horvat so I don't only have 2 pure centers. Hischier has been playing really well. Obviously, Point, you know what he can bring to the table. I'm okay with it, to be honest. Yeah, like we mentioned, New Jersey has played a lot of games so far, so you're getting a few extra games on that end. Not sure exactly how many games that'll be. It's probably not super significant, although Tampa's only played 16 games so far. So yeah, there's a 5-game difference between Tampa and New Jersey at the moment. Yeah, I think I could co-sign that one. I see she says Zegras apparently recently single. Well, what are we doing? Let's get this man some love in his life. Everybody deserves that. Michael says, I think Zegras just hates playing for the Ducks like every other player on the team. That could be. Bob saying no live show on Discord tonight. If you're referring to the patron-only show, no, there will not be one. Next one will be in December, probably the first or second week in December. Michael asks how you like Josh Norris. I do like Josh Norris. Let's see what he's been doing the last little bit. 3 goals, 4 assists, his last 5. Underlying numbers have gone down. They were pretty good for a bit. Now they've gone down again. On the season, they've not been too great, but he's getting a ton of minutes, almost 20 minutes. Now playing on the Kachuk line. I like Josh Norris just fine. Should be rostered in far more leagues. If you're down by 10 points with 1 ad left, are you going Blake the Snake Creamer or Yager? I have to go with Blake the Snake Creamer. Yeah, no question in my mind. Is Ekblad even rosterable in a 12-team league? Probably depends on your settings a little bit, but I do think that he can be. He's probably better than some defensemen some people are rostering. So, like, I forget where I heard this, but I don't want to take credit for it. It's not mine, but he should be rostered in a 12-team league, maybe not by you, is the quote. So hopefully you've got 4 defensemen that are better than Ekblad, but like the underlying numbers are probably going to be okay. He's probably going to get minutes. He's probably not going to score 0 goals on the season. That'll probably turn around at some point. Yeah, he's definitely rosterable, but he's definitely also not a guy who's going to score 50 points without power play 1. Nazem Kadri, how's he doing under the hood in all caps? That is aggressive, but we can answer the question. He's got 1 goal, 2 assists his last 5, over 19 minutes. Underlying numbers really good. 9th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Jumps off the page there. Yeah, Kadri still doing the thing. I am into Kadri. I think you could probably swing a buy low here. 23 goal, 41 point pace so far. Yeah, Kadri's a buy low. Comfortable saying that. Jordan, appreciate your help, Nate. You're the GOAT. Appreciate you. Michael asked, should I drop Tippet, RNH, or Slav? The 3 of them have been hurting my team quite a bit. It always depends who for. Yeah. I don't think you have to hang on to those guys in certain setups. In 12-team Bangers Cats leagues, probably want to be hanging on to Tippet and Slav for the bangs, if not for anything else. But yeah. CG says, thanks, man. Best fantasy content. Only one that's fruit-based. Absolutely. We're getting some really interesting comments now. It may be time to close this thing down. We got one more. Frag, Spencer Martin, streamer or keeper right now. Kochetkov is back, so yeah, I think they're probably going to roll Kochetkov, probably 2 of every 3 starts. I don't think you need to roster Spencer Martin at all. You can spot start him, I guess, if he's got a good spot, but that's about it. All right, we made it to the end. We got through all the players. We got through all the comments. It only took us 1 hour and 10 minutes. So I think that will be all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, which is a terrific free resource. And thanks to the band They're There for supplying the music for this podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.